boys and girls. Welcome back to Chapter 8 of Freddy. Having gone to sleep in the middle of the night, I was much livelier than usual when morning came. It was 8 o'clock, and Sophie was still in bed. I was debating whether to have an early morning workout when the bedroom door opened. Mom appeared. Maybe this was normal. Maybe Mom came to wake Sophie every morning while I was still asleep. What was abnormal, I was pretty certain, was the way she looked today. Her face was all swollen up and the color of a tomato. "Sophie," she said in an icy voice, "wake up." "Huh?" Sophie stretched and blinked. She seemed surprised to find Mom beside her bed. Then she sat up with a start. "Mom, what's the matter with you?" "An allergic reaction." "A what?" "A kind of illness caused by an irritant." "An irritant? What's that, Mom?" "It can be any number of things. The chemicals in a detergent, for instance, or cat hairs." Cat hairs. I literally froze with fear. Sophie still hadn't caught on. "But we don't have a cat, Mom." "Not a cat," said Mom, "but a hamster." "You mean Freddy?" Sophie's eyes widened. She hadn't a clue what all this was leading up to. Secretly, I crept towards the entrance to my burrow. Better to do a disappearing act, I thought, though I doubted that would help. Nothing but the hamster's god's personal intervention could save me now. Just as I slipped into my burrow, I saw Sophie stiffen. But, you don't mean Freddy?" "I'm sorry, dear, but I'm afraid the hairs from his fur are making me ill." Like heck, she was sorry. That crafty skunk. But, Sophie stammered. Then agitation sharpened her wits. "Look, Mom, Freddy's been here a while now. You've never had never before had you have a... Mom, I don't get it." "An allergic reaction?" Mom says. "True, but why not? For one thing, because I've been careful not to go near him. For another, because his hairs have taken this long to spread around the apartment." "But Mom..." A note of despair came into Sophie's voice. "It could be something different. Why are you blaming Freddy?" "Because I know it," Mom said. "Anyway, it's obvious what we have to do now." "What?" Sophie still refused to understand. "Really, Sophie? You know as well as I do." "No, Mom, no!" Sophie started to sob. "Please don't!" "Come on, Sophie. You think I'm enjoying this? Look at me. You can't want your mother going around in this condition. And I'm running a fever now, too." But it doesn't mean that it was Freddy's fault." "You bring him into our home, and I get an allergy. What more proof do you want? That creature is going. This morning. We're taking it back to the pet shop. I'm sorry. But there it is." I heard Mom leave the room. Sophie was sobbing loudly now. I mean, we hamsters are prone to sentimentality, but it really got me down to hear her. I crawled out of my burrow. Sophie was standing beside the cage in her nightie, gazing at me with tears trickling down her cheeks. I hadn't realized she was quite so attached to me. As for me, I suddenly knew I would miss her if I had to go back to the pet shop. But I didn't have to. Why not? Because I would escape from my cage first. I was determined to go into hiding. My chances were pretty good. The apartment was huge, with lots of pieces of furniture to hide under. Above all, though, it was part of an old building, so there were any number of cracks, gaps, crevices, and holes into which I could vanish without a trace. What about food? It would be bad luck indeed if I couldn't find some in the kitchen or elsewhere. No point in kidding myself, though. Life would be hard. But leave this place? Leave Sophie and go back to prison and the pet shop? Never! If only Sophie would stop looking at me. I couldn't open the door unless she did. It would be better if she couldn't gaze at me so intently. I crawled back into my burrow, and sure enough, a little while later, I heard her leave the room as if she'd come to a decision. Quickly, I dug out the pencil and lugged it over to the carousel, listening for sounds outside the room. I couldn't afford to let Sophie catch me unaware. After all, she wasn't in my plans. She'd be bound to take away my lever and that would ruin everything. Sophie was talking to Mom in the kitchen. I could only hear snatches of the conversation, but she was obviously trying to talk her way out of it. A waste of time, naturally. Just as I was climbing onto the carousel with the pencil in my paws, I heard Mom say, "Right! I'm going to call John." Mr. John? Why would she call him? Of course! She needed him to take me back to the pet shop. Except that Freddy Artis wouldn't be around when he showed up. I proceeded to maneuver the tip of the pencil under the catch. Just then, Sophie came sprinting along the passage at a rate I wouldn't have thought her capable of. I jumped off the carousel and buried the pencil in double quick time. I had just started cleaning my whiskers, all innocent looking, when she burst into the room. "Freddy!" she cried. "What if—" She broke off and eyed me thoughtfully. Strange. What was she going to say? She sat down on her chair, sat there rooted to the spot, just gazing at me. I was on pins and needles. We waited. Then the doorbell rang and she raced off again. I promptly began to dig up my pencil again. "Mr. John!" I heard her shout out. "Hi, kid." I climbed onto the carousel, but I could already hear them coming down the hall, so I hastily reburied the pencil. A moment later, Sophie came into the room, followed by Mr. John. Bushy eyebrows, big nose, and a seemingly inevitable leather briefcase under his arm. "Hi, kid." My first impression was confirmed. Mr. John seemed like a really nice guy. He was considerate enough to remain standing in the doorway, so the smell was just bearable. "Well, Sophie," he said, "I'll do it for your sake, but I don't think you'll like it." I was transported in my cage, not the box I'd arrived in. At least I would be able to survive the journey in a smell-proof burrow, an important consideration, because Mr. John came too close for comfort when carrying the cage out of the apartment. Sophie came too, which soothed my nerves a little. Mom, I never saw again. That much, at least, I was spared. From the sound of his footsteps, Mr. John carried the cage down some stairs. Then a door opened, and I was instantly bombarded with noise, a harsh mixture of sounds ranging from the highest to the lowest frequencies. I crept deep into my burrow, feeling utterly miserable. So this was the end. Goodbye to a cage of my own. Goodbye to reading books. Goodbye, Sophie. Golden hamsters can't weep. If things prove too much for us, we sink into a state of apathy. Our love of life is extinguished. We even lose interest in food. At that moment, not even 10 mealworms would have coaxed me out of my burrow. My heart was as heavy as lead. At some stage, I heard a door open. Then it closed, and the noise died away. We had reached the pet shop, so that was that. Hey, what was happening? The pet shop was all on one level, but my cage was being carried up some stairs. Some pretty steep ones. What was going on? Where on earth were we? Mr. John and Sophie came to a halt. A handle turned and a door creaked open. Mr. John's mixture of smells grew suddenly stronger. Quite a bit stronger. I could tell this even inside my burrow. Phew! What a stench! Before long, my nose was as numb and sensitive as a human's. I heard the door close. Mr. John carried my cage for another few steps, then put it down. "Well," he said, "this is as good as any place. He's far enough from the other two in here." "What other two?" "But he'll have to stay in this cage, I'm afraid," Mr. John said. "It's too risky." Too risky? What was he talking about? "William's a lazy old thing, I know, but I can't be sure about him." William? William the sweaty tomcat? I caught on at last. I was at Mr. John's place. I'd wound up with Mr. John and his menagerie. That's the end of chapter 8. Thanks again for hanging out, boys and girls. We'll see you soon. Bye now for now.